this is the second year that DLA Piper and Alterdomus and Deloitte have come together.
Right.
The markets seem to keep moving ever faster and becoming more complex. So why do these partnerships matter?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, impact matters, right? And so if you have something to contribute, right, in a way that has receptivity in the marketplace, what you have to do is make people's lives and what they're trying to accomplish better, faster, right? No different than the evolution of the markets, right? And so if you don't do things collectively, you have lower impact and you drive people's attention to things they don't need to focus on.
I think about partnerships as both friction reducing, which is what I think you're touching on, and value producing. So if our two firms know each other, are we more efficient at providing those outcomes too?
Each participant is better. So there's value proposition from the organizational perspective, but you also have to think about the community you're serving. Right? And are they better if we're in partnership? And the answer is yes, because now you have a cohesive cross-function engagement.
We both are talking about markets moving faster and things shifting. What are you seeing shifting for your customers? Give us an example.
Well, so look, I live in a world where I've watched the maturation of an asset class, right? Not from inception, because I'm old but not that old. But really as it has evolved from the late 90s through to today, right? And that market has grown at scale, right, from an AUM perspective, and some of that is kind of just the ability of investors to redeploy capital on an accelerated base, but also in a time where you had a zero interest rate environment. So we're at a different place now today. There's been massive growth in the private markets on the sponsor side, massive growth on the investor side, both within their AUM, but also the number of investors. And so what you are continuing to now see and worry about is the differentiation on returns in private markets relative to public markets, right? And we can all talk about how the public markets, if you pick the wrong benchmark, are over-concentrated, right? In, I think 17 companies drive 45% of the returns in the S&P 500. And everyone talks about the Magnificent Seven. But from an investor perspective, with a kind of free cost of capital environment, you can't depend as much on multiple expansion and then your buyer of your assets, right, having the same leverage cost as the seller of that asset. And that has had an impact that the whole industry talks about on lower distributions paid in, right? And so the historical 25% kind of return per year in your allocation has dropped to 10 to 15%, which changes your capital cycle from 4 years to 8 to 10, right? So what does that do? It drives challenges for institutions from a pacing perspective and a scale perspective because they're not receiving distributions at the level that they need to in their programs. So the sponsor community then says, well, we still need to access capital to do our deals, right? And we have some alignment concerns we got to work through, and they need to drive liquidity. So that creates the whole GP-led secondary market, the LP secondary market, which they're now basically weighted, right, from a total addressable market perspective on an annual basis. Is that temporal or is that permanent? And I think the answer is it's a permanent feature in our business, and it's not kind of an isolated pocket, it's an asset class in and of itself. And as you think about that, you have to think about the impact on opportunities in the industry, right? It creates short-term liquidity that is potentially long-term destructive, right? Because if you use a transaction, if you reshape a core liquidity feature in the marketplace, that has an impact on kind of the positive skew in a portfolio. And if you have a negative impact to positive skew because you're actually now in a situation where you're selling an asset before, right, it might be optimal to sell, right? It brings down long-term returns. And as you compare that to public markets, regardless of the benchmark you pick, does that have an implication on the industry? Opportunity for growth in the industry for people and careers, and then what does it do for the mission of which those investors are investing for? Does it create more pressure kind of on those organizations to deliver the promises they have to their capital.
From what I see at Alderdomus, it also creates new operational efficiency challenges, right?
Sure.
If the top line is not growing as fast as what you signed up for,
Right.
You need to think about your fundamental operations.
Yeah.
And making those as modern as governance and your data and your processes allow.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that you can extract value that way.
The last word you use is where it goes into is like, what is the value creation thesis, right? You have to have revenue growth. You want to see margin improvement. Leverage is purely a risk question, right? And so the idea is there some other operational differences that leans into revenue growth and margin improvement? Are you directing your resource allocation the right way to drive that, assuming that you can't control the leverage levels and the cost of leverage in and of itself to value create?
Amen.
Right.